Hello, everybody. Welcome to the A Team
Hello.
with RC, and we're waiting for Amber. But in the meantime, how are you, RC?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing
Good.
great.
Good.
Happy
And
Valentine's Day.
yes, happy early Valentine's Day, everyone.
There's my heart. Love you.
Love you. I can't do it as good. Not as
Yes, you
good.
can.
Similar. Okay, I can. We have a very special guest coming on tonight, but first I wanted to start with something. We do have the great Dr. Erin Shannon coming on tonight to talk with us again. I know a lot of you have seen her on previous shows, and she truly is amazing and deals with a lot of different athletes and a lot of different very special ways, and is a mother of 5 girls,
Incredible.
which is very cool also. But first, I wanted to start the show off with insecurities. So insecurities as women is something that is, we just pile on so much onto us on an everyday basis of trying to perform and do everything to the best of our ability in any way that we can. But there's always roadblocks. There's always things that can come up that can make those things even more challenging and more difficult. For instance, one of them, some of you don't know, some of you do. I have lupus. And with lupus, sometimes you get sores, and those sores can turn into scars. And I have always been very insecure with my scars because I have them on my face, and you guys probably can't see them, but I'll get close. But I have them all right here on my face. I do have some on my forehead, some on my arms, and some on my hands. Um, it has been a huge insecurity of mine, but also not being able to cover them and not having makeup on is a very, very hard thing. And also, I'm a hairstylist and I have roots, and I have roots because I am a mom. So, and I have gray, and I can't always get these things done.
Right.
Um,
It's priorities.
but it's been very hard. It's a hard thing as a woman. I think sometimes, as I remember when I was younger, I didn't even want to go to the store without having something on my face. So I am conquering that tonight by going live, um,
Proud of you, girl.
and not having anything on my face or on my lips or on anything, just literally just bare today on the face. So, and it's very hard for me. I'm actually like heating up as I'm talking about this.
You're doing great. You're beautiful.
Very, very anxiety driven, which it shouldn't be,
Yeah.
but it is. What's yours, RC?
Well, I actually have two. One is culturally, and then one is more medical. So I was actually born in Mexico, and so I'm Mexican. And my mom had beautiful green eyes. I have three older brothers, and the oldest and the youngest have beautiful blue eyes. And myself and my middle brother, we have brown eyes. And so growing up, I was referred to my eyes as color de caca, which translation means the color of shit. And so those were what my eyes were referred to in my household because I
Wow.
didn't have green eyes and because I didn't have blue eyes like my other two brothers. And so I was always not ashamed of my eyes, but I got tired of people saying, "Oh, don't you wish you had blue eyes?" or "Don't you wish you had your mom's green eyes?"
See.
And I couldn't really do anything about that. I really couldn't change the color of my eyes, but so much emphasis was put on the color of my eyes. And so growing up, I just never really looked at my eyes in that sense that they were pretty or anything like that. They were just a sore spot for me. And so a lot of times when I put makeup on, I look at my eyes and I'm like trying to make them look pretty. And today I didn't wear
They
any
are
makeup.
beautiful, RC. They're beautiful. You have beautiful eyes.
Well, thank you. And then the other
Mhm.
one is that most people know that I'm diabetic and I've been for the last 25 years, and it has definitely taken a toll on my teeth. And I
Mhm.
have quite a few teeth that have fallen out. And so I've kind of learned to, because to smile where you can't really see the gaps. And then this past summer, I was in a car accident, so I have one missing tooth on the bottom. So I'm always like trying to lift up my bottom lip so no one can tell until I get an implant. So I guess those would be my two insecurities. But I will say that being able to come on the podcast and having the camera so close to me, I've realized that either you love me or you don't, right? You're going to love me with teeth or no teeth, or but what's more important is what I have to communicate. And it's not my smile, it's not my teeth, it's not my eyes. It's really what the message that I want to give to you. And I think that message to you and to anyone who's listening is really more important than what you see here physically. So those are my insecurities.
Absolutely. Oh, not know that. Love that. Thank you for sharing that with us, RC.
Thank you for sharing your story too.
Oh, you're so sweet. Amber, your turn.
So I tend to be a more masculine female, right? I mean, I was a cop and a drill sergeant in the Army. I've raised boys. I never had the opportunity to do like the actual feminine things. Not that I can't, but it was always such an issue for me. And growing up, because I was so physical, I didn't have the hourglass figure.
I like it. I like it for those.
That everyone wants. I had the broad shoulders with the lats that stuck out. And, you looked at me from the back and you were like, excuse me, sir. And then I turn around, oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, ma'am, kind of thing. Because I was such an athlete, and I mean, between that and my smile and, just the way I present myself, I like to do the guy things, not the girly things. I don't do the purses and the makeup and the handbags. I don't do all of that stuff. So I'm most awkward in high heels and an evening gown. I really, truly am. But I'm most comfortable in like jeans and a t-shirt, pair of boots.
I love it. And that's what is the most important is when you feel good in your own skin, that's all that matters. That's all that matters.
This little figure right here, yeah, that doesn't work for me.
That shirt is so good.
Isn't it funny?
I love it.
I did it as a joke for a beach day with friends.
So funny. Well, on that note, we have Dr. Erin Shannon, and I am getting ready to bring her on. She is so sweet. So everyone, welcome.
Hey, what's going on, Erin?
Hey, guys. Hello.
How are you today?
I wish I would have known about the no makeup and the. I mean, I hate putting on makeup. I'm very bad at it. I live in sweats or scrubs. So I felt something with everything everybody said there. Like, I think every human being can relate, but I think as women, we really have, especially the last 100 years, we've gone so much from what we look like and what we can produce being our only value. And we've still got that in our heads. And no matter how hard we try, sometimes any anxiety can kind of come up and it tends to pigeonhole itself. And, I think that, like you said, I have 5 girls. I have 1 boy. My oldest is a boy and 5 girls. And for me, it was a big challenge to make sure that I didn't let them see my negative or insecure points as valid or something that I spent time on. And, talk about healing quickly when you don't want your girls to deal with that, because you know how bad it is. You can never be happy if you've got that negative voice in your head. I think that's what really made me say, hey, I need to take a look at this. I wouldn't want my girls saying that to themselves. Why would I say that to myself? It's not nice. It's mean.
Exactly.
And I think that inner chatter, everybody's got that. Everyone that is human has it. And it's, okay, how can we identify it, make peace with it, and then refine it and challenge it? And that's a process that I found helps me with my own peace and happiness, but it also makes a huge difference in the way I see the world and how I manifest things in my life. If I've got a negative voice inside of my head and I let it run rampant, I indulge it, my life is negative. I'm just calling in negative stuff, and it is on my face. It's the way I walk, the way I talk. So I have a constant running dialogue where I challenge that voice in my head. And I can say that it's exhausting to start that process because you realize how bad it is, how negative and loud it is. But once you get through that kind of first couple weeks of, man, this voice is running my life. Once you get through that and you challenge it, and you challenge yourself in a lot of different ways, and I work on this with my players, with everybody. If we can identify it and challenge it and then replace it, it then becomes a new habit. And the amount of negative crap that I deal with in my head compared to, 20 years ago, night and day. It's still there, and I still continue to challenge it, but I am now more aware of it because it's jarring to me because I'm not used to hearing it 24/7. And that used to be my normal.
Yeah. Well, let me kick off the questions first.
Okay.
What role does a healthy, balanced diet play in our mental health and physical health?
I think research has shown the microbiome in the gut, they're calling, it the second brain, might be even the first brain, really. And I think you can really see this when you see people with deficiencies, when you see people that are malnourished or they're, lacking in a nutrient. A lot of us think we're nourished, but there may be nutrients that essential nutrients that our body is really lacking. And massive difference in your mental state, massive difference, obviously, in your physical state. I don't think we can underestimate the role that diet and sleep really have. If we don't have the right hydration, nutrition, and rest and sleep, forget it. I mean, anybody that has gone a little bit of sleep deprivation or, gotten themselves to a place where they haven't eaten so long that they can't even focus or concentrate and everything hurts, the light hurts, noise, everything drives you nuts. Those are the basics. You've got to get those basics down or forget everything else.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, sleep deprivation, nutrition, even injury can cause trauma to the body that you don't necessarily recognize right off the bat. And, your mindset may not even have recognized it, whether you're just dealing with everyday stress or if you've suffered a physical injury and you've gone under anesthesia or something like that. Right. So how can one help release the physical trauma that the body endures after an injury?
Well, this is one of the big ones that I tend to deal with for athletes. A lot of times they come in specifically for that. And what I think in the last even 5 years, we've really realized is that the mind and our consciousness doesn't really know the difference between what is real and what is not. Okay. So I've got so many stories of guys that maybe they had to reconstruct their ankle and they can't bear weight on it and they can't move it. And there have been studies back 50, 60 years. The Russians were big on this, the Olympic Russian athletes. If you have 3 groups of people, okay, one group only does the exercise. One group does 50% exercise, 50% visualization. And visualization, what I mean is extremely specific, focused, not just, okay, I'm going to visualize myself working out. I mean, you are thinking about muscles and tendons and how far the weight is going and how it's very labor intensive. Okay. It's a full body visualization process. And then you have the third group that just does visualization. You would be shocked to see the measures of, for example, muscle atrophy versus, maintenance versus gain. The people that only did the visualization gained muscle.
Wow.
Didn't do the exercise, gained the muscle. We've figured this out a little bit later than I think our Eastern counterparts, but I think now when you see, especially professional athletes, I think we're aware of the fact that there's only so many reps you can do physically. And I think we see these guys, on TV, and we see physical perfection and physical extreme. You can't, sometimes you max out on weight. And if you do more, you're going to hurt yourself, right? These guys are so very finely tuned, intricately, perfectly, in so many ways. If you've got a whole league of guys that are at the top of everything because they've got a nutritionist and a functional chiropractor and all of this, what's the biggest gains that they can do between one guy and the next? If everybody's great, the mental gains that you can do will make all the difference in the world. I don't care how talented you are. And if you can spend time doing your mental game, doing your mental reps, getting your mind right, and having the ability to control getting into the zone, that's not an accident. You don't just stumble up in there. If you can find a way to get yourself in the zone, regardless of what's going on, you're bulletproof. You're unstoppable. It's even more important when you're coming with an injury, when you're coming out of surgery, right? When you're in a situation that, hey, life off the field sucks, or, someone just died. How do you get yourself mentally into a place where you can give your body the best chance to perform, to recover? That is something that takes just as much effort, if not more, than the physical stuff.
Great. Now, I know we had talked last time, and I may have mentioned that I'm a speech language pathologist. And so when I was looking over your website, I noticed that you had done some voice therapy with Joe Buck. And I know you mentioned recovery. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. Because was his injury not really sports related, or what was the cause of that?
Yeah. So, and the reason that I can talk about this is because he talked about it and put it in a book, which he told me about after he put it in the book, which I was very upset. No. But obviously we grew up together. Our dads announced baseball together. So we've known each other since we were, babies, both of our families. I saw him during the playoffs of 2011 I was, there at Busch Stadium with the Cardinals, and he looked terrible. And, being like a sibling, I was like, "What? You look awful. What is the problem here?" And he told me, he said, "I've got paralyzed vocal cords, and nobody knows that, but I'm losing it. And that's his career. His voice is his career." So, he had heard about some of the stuff that I was doing, my kind of energy medicine, weird stuff with the players. And he said, I said, "Well, let me try, can't hurt." And we were all flying to Texas, maybe the next day. We were like getting ready to go. And so a few hours after the game's, 2 a.m, he texts me and he says, "You mean it? Can you really try to do something?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Can you meet me on the, Fox jet? We're leaving in like 2 hours." I'm like, "Great." So I'm like 3 days, no sleep, right? I don't think I've taken a shower in 2 days. I'm just killing it. Walk on there, and it wasn't really voice therapy. I guess it was for him, but it was doing certain energy medicine techniques to move energy through the paralyzed areas and try to get it moving again. And so as soon as, I got on, I said, I'm either going to fall asleep or I'm going to start working. So let's start going here. And it was funny because on the plane was Tim McCarver, who played baseball with my dad, who I've known forever, and Troy Aikman, who I've known forever. So it was like, it was a pretty comfortable group. So I started working, and about 5 minutes, he couldn't believe it. He said, I can feel that. I can feel it. And he started to, and they had told him, he had seen everybody. He had gone to Mayo Clinic and he'd gone everywhere, had the best guy in the world. And they said, we think it might be permanent paralysis. And we got it working. And, I worked with him through the playoffs, through the World Series. And the cool thing about that was he ended up winning an Emmy for one of his calls that he did. And that call, it was so loud in the stadium. It was the David Freese home run call. It was so loud in the stadium, and he was trying to get his voice up over the crowd, which is very difficult to do. It's open air. And so, every chance I got, I was in there like during the game, right? If the cameras weren't on, bam, I was in there doing my stuff. And he got his voice up over the crowd, and it was deafening. And that call won him that Emmy. I'm sure he's won a ton more, but yeah. So, he went back to his specialist, and they're like, we don't know what you're doing, but it's moving again. So
That's awesome.
crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, phenomenal, right? I do want to make sure that, hey, if any of our viewers have a question for Dr. Erin, please feel free to post it in the chat, and let's just keep going. I know we only got a little bit more time left with you, Doc, but I know Amanda's got another question lined up. What do you got, Amanda?
Players get cramping on the field at times. What could that be attributed to?
Well, I think that it's important, all of the normal things, right? Hydration, carbohydration, so food, water, but, there are different kinds of cramping, right? There are cramps that are caused by different things. These guys are so finely scrutinized by the nutritionist. They're taking samples of everything. They're getting bags of fluids. But they're pushing themselves to extremes. There are so many other things besides the hydration. And, there are certain metabolic conditions that cause it. There are certain anatomical issues that cause it. Even, the difference in elevation, right? You see the guys with the oxygen on the sideline. So there's so many things that can contribute to it. And I think everybody's so different. You have to begin to know your body. You have to see the precursors to it. Some guys are like, yeah, I have to eat 2 bananas every night. And if I don't do that, then, I have to stretch this certain way. So I think most of the time you see that it's either, they just got low because of whatever reason, or there's something specific with their body. For me, I used to cramp really bad, and I would tear my muscles off my bone even. And it was because I had like a difference in, my quad and hamstring. One was stronger than the other. And so it would pull. It ended up, pulling my kneecap wrong. So it's just, there's so many things that have to go perfectly right for us not to break down. And so, these guys are great examples of pushing their bodies to the extreme. And even with all of the aid that they get, things happen. We are human, unfortunately.
Right. So then, if there was any advice that you can give just us regular average schmoes out there in the world regarding injury and or how to prevent, what would be your best advice and why?
Well, if something hurts, don't ignore it, right? If you got to balance between being hyper vigilant and being aware and not letting something build up. We all know like what happens when your shoulders are up here because you've been so tense all day, right? And just giving yourself every maybe 2 hours, setting a little timer and giving yourself a minute to check in with your body. What's tense? What's aching? If it's hurting, figure out why it's hurting. Don't just throw an Advil on it or put an ice pack on it. If this is a chronic thing, do maintenance. I mean, it's like your body's check engine light. Take a look, see what's wrong. Go to somebody that knows.
Great.
I love that. Check engine light.
Engine light's on, right?
Yeah.
I was reading that you're part of the team Gateway to a Cure with Michael J. Fox and Muhammad Ali. Can you talk about that and explain that?
Sure. So in St. Louis, we've got the larger national foundation is for Parkinson's awareness and raising money for finding a cure. In St. Louis, we're the Gateway City with the Gateway Arch and everything. Our chapter is called Gateway to a Cure. And a friend of mine came to me and said, hey, because I was doing some stuff with the concussions and the CTE. And so came to me and asked if I would do some work with them. They were making a documentary and they do some great work. So anything and everything that I can do for any neurodegenerative disease, I love doing it. Joe Buck's father, Jack, had Parkinson's. So many people have these neurodegenerative diseases that are just devastating. And I think there's been a lot of good that's come of it. Even for our Gateway to a Cure, the foundation, recently what they've been looking at is the effects of all of the stress on the caregivers, be it the spouse or the child, of having a loved one that has Parkinson's and dealing with it's not a quick illness. It's a long, drawn out, painful thing. And the ramifications on the caregiver, and how can we start to address caregivers so that they don't end up being so depleted and exhausted that they crash out and have some medical issue. And so I think, that's been our focus the last couple of years is what can we do to support the caregivers? There was even a book written for kids about, how do you talk to a kid when grandpa gets this thing and why is grandpa doing this? And so, just kind of trying to think holistically about making a system better to support. If we can't get a cure, we need to at least figure out better ways to deal with what we have.
Right. And it's amazing for me to know that it was Christopher Nowinski, right? The wrestler. He was the one that actually started all of this research getting into mainstream. And it was, WWE that kind of pushed it to, hey, let's really look at head injuries. And then the NFL kind of piggybacked off of that. And it just sort of steamrolled from there. So I'm wondering, are you working with any of the wrestlers currently, or even with Mr. Chris Harvard, as he was known? He's a Harvard graduate. That's an amazing thing to be a neuroscientist and a wrestler all at the same time. Have you ever been able to work with him to help better the cause?
Yeah. So I've actually got several individuals that work with that foundation, and the NFL has had issues with the awareness factor, and I think they've done a much better job in the last few years, but I think we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
And what you're referring to is CTE and the chronic concussions and what leads to these long-term, really odd and scary manifestations. And I think that when they did the study and they basically said, you know, hey, we had 100 brains, right, of NFL players, and 99 of them had CTE. That was a big shock to people. And it's not just NFL players or wrestlers or boxers that are
Right.
dealing with these conditions. And, you know, CTE is one very far end of the spectrum, but there are several points where intervention can help. And I think one of the big things now, one of the big initiatives is trying to get the age for tackle football pushed back, because there are critical periods of brain growth. You know, the brain is just not meant to smash against hard things. It's just not. And when you smash it against hard things, bad stuff is going to happen. And when you do it repeatedly, and you don't have to have a concussion that knocks you out, it can be little tiny injuries where you're just tearing those meninges, tearing those things in the back. You know, I think everybody would be shocked at how many times we all experience brain injuries and insults. And there's a lot of studies now, and Amen clinics and a lot of places talk about brain health and what can we do to buffer our brain so that if we do go into something where we get into a car accident or we fall, we, you know, have an issue, how can we get our brain to, you know, have a little bit of a buffer zone by eating right, by thinking right. So I've found that focusing on what we can do prevention wise, as well as just brain health rather than brain injury, has been a good focus lately.
So on that note, I wanted to ask you, in women's football versus men football, what is the difference in the challenges that we as women face that can have longer term effects on our bodies versus men?
You know, I think that the good thing about the initiative with women's football is we're talking about flag football, right? And flag football is a whole different animal. Now, there are contact football leagues with women. And, you know, there are differences between men and women. I know that people want, you know, there's equality, but then there's also anatomy, right? And ignoring those differences is, well, if you ignore those differences, it's to your peril. But women and men both have, again, a spectrum. Like you were talking about, Amber, you're talking about, I'm a masculine woman.
Yeah.
Right. You know, there are women that have bodies that are much better, you know, trained to, right. I mean, you see the range of individuals out there in an NFL game. Okay. That's a range, and you see every size and shape. For women, our bodies have different hardware, different software, but you know, we all have knees, we all have elbows, we all have brains. So yeah, there are differences. Now, if you're talking about a flag football sport, you're going to have a lot of the same issues. You know, you're going to, orthopedic wise, you're going to look for, cruciate ligament injuries, and because you're turning so quickly and there's burst speed. So yeah, can you get injured? Yes, of course you can get injured doing anything. But I think women playing contact sports against women, they're going to have the same issues as men playing against men.
Yeah, no, I completely concur. So then with that being said, do you think that being a woman can help or hinder how you treat a client? Like, for example, do you have to be the tough mom to get them to do what you want? Or do you have to take a gentle approach? You think that feminine energy that you possess can help or hinder a client depending on their injury?
Wait, say again, feminine energy? Do I
Yeah.
have?
Well, hey, we all have it, whether we want to admit even I got it. Okay.
I'm playing. Well, I will definitely say that, I do think so there's pros and cons. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up, my mom was the wife of an athlete. I was the kid of an athlete. I know that life more than anything else. That's who I am. It's what
Right.
I grew up with, right? So when I go into a situation, if I'm working with a team or I'm in locker rooms or I'm treating somebody, physically, I make sure that I am extraordinarily respectful and very clear in the way I act and the way I interact so that the respect is shown. I've never had an experience where someone that I was treating, a client, a patient, had the wrong idea.
Right.
Never. Now I know that, and the more I interact with people that may do soft tissue work or other things, I'm shocked at how often that does occur. Now, why? I don't know 110% why. And could it happen? Yeah. But I make sure that I am doing everything that I can that I would want as a wife, as a child, and as a player. I do everything I can to protect the players. I protect their privacy. I protect the sacredness of the treatment room is extremely important to me. And so I am doing everything that I can to minimize discomfort, but also be who I am. I think that most of the time people can sense if you're acting, right? And so I am who I am as the shrink in the room or as the person that's doing the energy medicine or, as the person that's doing the educational piece. There may be a bit of a difference. I mean, maybe when I'm in an NFL locker room, I'm walking and talking a lot differently than if I'm at a PTA meeting, which I don't think I've ever gone to one of those. But I'll tell you what, I do feel the most comfortable in rooms where I don't look like anybody in that room. I always remember there was a song on like Electric Company or Sesame Street, and it was one of these things is not like the others. And I always felt like, my outside and my inside never matched. But I think being female, when I'm in the room one-on-one or even in a group with especially men and male athletes, professional athletes, there's a factor that just doesn't have to be dealt with, which is, if I am a man and I'm a sports psychologist and I'm going to teach you about mental toughness and all of this stuff, there's two masculine energies in there, right? Like these guys know they're stronger than me. Okay. They're faster than me. They can jump higher than me. Like we're not arguing that. If they cry, they don't have to keep up a lot of appearances that are really a hallmark of who they are out there in the world. So that's one that I think is very helpful. But two, because I grew up the way I did, I don't think they're cool. I don't have starstruckness. I don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
The only people that I think can really grow up without that, really without it, are kids that grew up in that industry. Whether you're like one of my nephews married the daughter of a very famous rock star. That's a good match right there because neither one, whether they're going to a football game or they're going to a concert, they could care less because it's normal, And so to be able to have a guy walk in who is literally the best in the world. No one's ever, he can't walk anywhere in the entire world and not be noticed and not be identified. And for him to walk in the room, and I'm like, bro, you're 10 minutes late. What the? Like, I will straight fire you. You know? For them to be seen as a human being, sometimes they haven't had that in years. I mean, even your family begins to look at you and treat you differently when you get to a certain level of notoriety. Maybe you met your significant other after you rose to that level. Maybe they don't know you as anything else. But for somebody to be able to see that scared little boy or that person with some phobia that they don't want people to know about, a human being, I think that is 90% of the trust and the healing that goes on in the room. If you don't have that, you're not gonna, you're gonna top out somewhere. You might get to a certain level, but you're not gonna have a relationship that will withstand the things that you need and will be full of truth. So I think that there's a mix of things. Yeah, it helps that I'm a woman. Do I have to overcome a lot of things because I'm a woman? Yeah, I do. Owners, coaches, they're always thinking there's a liability. And my job is to make sure that they can trust that I'm not, that I am the one you want in there.
And I think that's the hardest part too, because my son throughout the years has had some medical things happen, and he was in and out of the hospital for basically 2 years, to the point where I could not find it in me to trust anyone here, that I had to go to another state for him to get care. And the first time we went in there, he did one test, and we found out literally within a week when that test came back. And it's just now to the point where when I'm here and I do have to take him in, I have this trust issue because the care he was getting, yes, while it was great here, it wasn't the matter of fact that I needed. So what I want to know from you is how does a patient like me who's gone through something like that gain that trust back from doctors that I had previously had that I still now have? How does that come back? How do you feel okay enough to go in somewhere and say, okay, here's what's been going on, and I trust you wholeheartedly? Like, it's just, how do you gain that?
Well, I think that once you've lost trust, it's hard as you know what, to get it back.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, why should you trust? Like when you go in, there is a standard. The person has their degrees on the wall, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And there are things that they can and can't do. But other than those major things, they need to be proving to you and earning your trust. If they don't have time for your questions, if they discount your intuitive hunches, bye, bro. Like, I don't care how many degrees you have on your wall. If you can't see me with a clear mind without already having your diagnostic criteria in your head, if you're worried about when you look in the record, oh, Dr. So-and-so, he's chief of whatever, and I don't want to, I'm not going to say his diagnosis wasn't right. No, give your opinion. And if you don't feel comfortable with your shrink, your pediatrician, your neurosurgeon, get out and go find someone you're comfortable with. It might not have anything to do with that person's intelligence or their training. It might be a mismatch, right? I remember with my son, my first child, right? I went into a pediatrician, and this pediatrician was like renowned, right? She had seen everybody. Everybody's like, she's the best. She's the best. Okay, going. I was worried about something. I don't know what it was. I was worried about everything, but I brought one thing up, and I brought it up one or two times, and she really wasn't addressing it. And so I kind of brought it up a little bit forcefully. And she looked at me and shook her head and said, "Sweetheart," I said, "What'd you call me?" What'd you call me? No, we're not going to, because this is my firstborn child. If I'm being crazy, that's fine. Okay. You are trained to deal with my new mommy craziness. And that's we're not. No.
It's condescending. It's almost like it's condescending beneath me. Like, yeah, no.
If you can't answer me, I don't care how smart I am. If I can't answer a question and explain it to a 7-year-old, that's on me.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, my dad used to always say, you know, I don't care about all that. Explain it to me like I'm a kid. And if you can't explain it to me like that, then you clearly don't know what you're talking about. So go figure it out better. And I think that's true. And I think if you don't understand what your physician is saying, your therapist is saying, if you walk out and have a question about that, no, they need to sit down and explain it. If they can't, if they don't have time, then they need to find somebody who does, or you need to find somebody else. I think it's really hard when it's your kid. And I think it's really hard when it's an emergency. Obviously, that's a different situation when you're in the hospital and things are going on and you just got to shut up and sit down. Okay. But there comes a point in time where if you've got a nagging feeling and you're not being heard, that's a problem.
Right.
So shop around.
With that being said, Dr. Erin, my last question for you is, we know it's practicing medicine, and no matter what the degrees are on the walls,
right?
Who is the best advocate for healthcare?
I think that the best thing about the pandemic, right, was that I do believe now it's pretty common knowledge that if you are not the one that is in charge of your damn health and the issues that you are worried about, don't just take someone's word for it. Don't just read something on whatever website. Do all of it. And I don't have time to do that. Okay, well, I guess you'll have time when you're in the hospital doing nothing because you didn't listen to it, right? So there's information, there's misinformation, there's a system in this country that's run certain ways that things are rewarded, things are frowned upon. Don't just take something at face value. It is more and more clear to all of us that the experts don't know everything. And when you get an expert that thinks they know everything, run. If they're talking about the human body or the brain and they think they know everything, good Lord. The smartest people I know, and I know some really brilliant doctors, scientists, researchers, they say, I don't know all the time, because we don't know. We have no idea. Stuff we are learning new stuff every day. The amount of new information we have every single day is more than the human existence has known in the history of humankind, because we've got the internet, we've got all this crazy stuff. We don't know.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
So, Erin, I wanted to ask you, I know that during the Super Bowl, I'm sure you watched it, there was a commercial about Nike talking about females' emotions and how when we show emotions, we're considered crazy. So I would like for you as a therapist, as a psychologist, to talk about the double standards of our emotions between men and women as an athlete, and how is that viewed?
You know, for me, it's been really amazing to watch what the push in women's sports has conquered. Do we have a long way to go? Oh, yeah, we have a long way to go.
Absolutely.
But yes, there is clearly a double standard. I don't know how much of it is malicious or if it's just how we've been raised, but we have to look really close at ourselves and our own issues, right? You know, our own subconscious, unconscious beliefs that we hold about ourselves as women, about men. Men should do this, women should do that. Is there a right or wrong? I think culturally, it's huge. And I think the more that we can challenge cultural or existing beliefs that we don't feel fit, either with ourselves or with society, the better we all become. The more that we can all, say, this is who I am, this is what I can do. If you've got a problem with it, that's your problem. But I do think I really love the commercials, and I've loved seeing athletes, male athletes, and the best male athletes giving such respect and camaraderie to the best female athletes. Because I've always seen that, but I guess I've seen it behind closed doors, the respect that athletes have for each other, women, men, different sports. Like, I love watching when the football players go to like a hockey game and the hockey players go to the football game, and the cute questions they're always asking, like, hey, how do those guys do? I'm like, what you do is incredible. They think you're incredible. You think they're incredible. Great. Right. But every athlete is very different. Male athletes, women athletes, but there's a respect there that I've always seen.
Yeah.
Now,
And
is the pay the same? No. Is that, those issues are going to get worked out. But I think we've come farther in the last 10 years than I think I've ever imagined we would. And I love that.
I agree, Dr. Erin. And I mean, with that being said, I truly, truly appreciate you taking the time to hang with us, answering some more questions. And for everyone at home and out there in the ether, let everyone know where they can find you if they'd like to reach out and learn more about you. What are some of the socials you'd like to give out?
I put the
Yeah.
Yeah. www.drerinshannon.com, folks. And it's always a pleasure. Thank you so very much for having us take the opportunity to speak with you and learn a little bit more about you. And we look forward to having you again soon.
Yeah, I would love to do that. And if we want to take, have people have questions about anything sports or psychology related or whatever, I think that would be really fun too. So I always love coming on with you ladies. And next time I'm not wearing makeup.
Yes. We'll all do it. Okay. We'll all do it.
110%.
Happy Valentine's Day.
You guys too. And I'd love to talk about the different things that each of us can do to address our issues, our phobias, our insecurities. I'd love to maybe go through some techniques, real things that, you can do right at home.
Yeah, let's do it. And also, Erin sent me some articles as well. I did post those in the comment line too. So please, everyone, do check those out because I've been reading through it and it's definitely worth looking at for sure. Erin, we will be in touch soon. Thank you so much for coming on. And we look forward to having you back.
Makeup free.
Yes, makeup free.
Sounds good. Bye,
all right, thanks. Bye.
Amazing, right?
Yeah, she's great. She is
as
great.
Always. Definitely.
Yes.
I love the straightforwardness that she brings.
Yes. And I love that she's a mom too, like with 6 kids.
Superwoman. Are we kidding?
5 girls?
Wonder Woman.
Are you kidding me? I could not imagine having 5 girls. Like, can you imagine having 5 of me? No.
I figured we'd take the last few little minutes and see what you guys thought about the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Super Bowl. Let's just
my
say
team
this.
won, and Amber, your team won. Amanda, what about your team?
My team won. You guys both said Chiefs. I said Eagles. So
we wanted the Eagles to win.
It was the other way around.
Oh, it was the other way around.
It was the other way around. It's your turn to eat crow, Amanda.
Listen, I don't have makeup on, and that's why.
Oh, is that what it is?
Because I don't have makeup on, that's why it's not all there.
I will say I was very happy with the refereeing this time around with the Kansas City Chiefs being involved, and I will be the first one to say it. had the Texans gotten that the first time around and or the second time around, it would have been an Eagles-Texans Super Bowl. I'm telling
Absolutely. I agree with that.
That's why the Vikings had a higher record than the Texans did. That's
you. Yeah, and they didn't even make the playoffs, did they?
They did make the playoffs, but they got booted the first week.
What did you think of the halftime show?
I thought it was great.
There were a lot of hidden messages in there. I don't know if anybody knows what the gossip is between Serena and Drake and Kendrick Lamar. Did y'all realize that the girl that was dancing with the blue skirt and the white top, that was Serena Williams, the tennis star?
I did know that.
Okay, well, whether it was a bash or not, like doing the
crib
walk, good for her.
It was a complete diss. The fact
but why is everyone reading into their relationship?
Kendrick Lamar how long ago? Looked at the camera, whole face smiled, and was talking directly to Drake.
No, he was strutting. He was doing the whole
he's like
arm
you
going out, diss? Walking.
I can diss too. But there was a lot of
wish you would have wore better jeans. Don't people dress up now if you're going to be performing, live? I didn't like his outfit, but nobody asked me. Jeans, long.
I was gonna wear what Amber has on.
Gloves? No.
Damn.
I was gonna wear what Amber had on to the Super Bowl.
I'm getting too old, I guess. I just don't understand fashion.
Yeah,
I mean those were some nice boot cut on the side cut jeans, and he didn't have any wardrobe changes.
No,
so I thought that was great for a change.
I enjoyed it.
I thought it was good.
I thought, as simplistic as it was, there were some hidden messages in there. I enjoyed it, and I love the hidden messages. It gives you a minute to look back and see.
But on the referee note, real quick, I don't think that you needed multiple referees for what the 3 or 4 interceptions that Mahomes had that whole game. They were pretty clear. I could see them very clearly with my eyes.
I'm just saying, when you're sitting there with a big old goose egg by the bottom half of the third quarter, it speaks volumes. And to have Philly put their second string in just so you can get some points. They did go on the over when it came to the over under.
That was harsh, Amber. That was harsh.
Yeah, well, it's reality.
It is reality.
Second string. I will say this much. I'm disappointed in the Philly fans for what they did to their own city after the fact. It was supposed to be a celebration, not a destruction of your street lights and lampposts and vehicles and so on and so forth.
I never understand that.
I don't get that. Guys, do better. Be better.
Absolutely.
I didn't know that they don't get paid for those. I did not know that.
They
pay for the production of it.
Eagles though?
EAGLES. Hold on.
Look at you. And you too can run for mayor of Philadelphia. With that being said, guys, my name is Amber. My wonderful co-host, Amanda and RC. Thank you so much again to Dr. Erin Shannon for joining us. And thank you all for joining us. Find us on your nearest Roku device or Fire Stick under the Fuel Sports Network. We are your Woman Crush Wednesday show, the A-Team with RC. And with that, we'll see you next time. Have a wonderful
Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.